By the end of this video, you will know the exact mistake I made that lost me $4,000 today. Keep watching. So let's talk about what actually happened today. So I lost $4,000. Now, if this was me like 2 years ago, I would be pissed. Like, damn it, we lost so much money. What are we gonna do? Blah, blah, blah. But nowadays, when I take losses, I look at them from a completely different lens. I don't look at this loss and get super sad, even though it does look bad. But I look at this loss and I'm like, this is the cost of doing business. Anything you do, you have to take risks. And this is the price I need to pay to make a lot of profit trading. So I don't get sad anymore. I just look at them like a business expense. It's like whatever, you know? Now let's look at the trade that I took. So this was the exact trade I took. We can see we have a gapper. It starts going up. Very strong price action. Look at the volume on this. Amazing stuff. Very strong surge straight off the open. We have a nice little bull flag over here and I take my entry. Normal standard entry, nothing special about it. Ends up going up a little bit and then it starts dumping back down and I sell somewhere over here for like a 4 something percent loss. So pretty small loss, and we'll get into some of the lessons from this trade, but in general the thing you have to keep in mind is every trade will not be a winner. If you're going into the mindset thinking that every single trade that I ever take will be a winner, I'm never gonna lose, you're looking at it from a completely wrong perspective. And what's gonna happen is it's gonna start compounding. And eventually when you do take a loss, it will hit you so hard and you're gonna be thinking like, this doesn't work, I need to quit, da da da. When in reality it's just a small loss. Like who cares? Move on to the next day. So if you have this mindset where you keep thinking like I can never take a loss, I always have to win, you're headed for like destruction, bro. Like you have to change your mindset. The best mindset you could possibly have is that losing is part of trading, because it really is. Like let's say you own a business, let's say you have a cookie shop, right? You have to pay for the supplies, you have to pay for the wheat, for the sugar, for the chocolate, right? You can't say that I'm never gonna pay for chocolate. It's like, bro, you have to pay for the chocolate. How else are you gonna make the cookies? Losing is part of trading. It's the cost of doing business. You're gonna be wrong, and that's completely okay. But here's the important thing, right? When you do take a loss, you can't just be like, oh, it's a loss, I'll take a loss. No. There's one thing you have to do. And the best thing you can do when you take a loss is to keep it as tiny as humanly possible. Now, this is something that I'm really good at, but it's taken me a lot of practice to get here. Because one of the main problems that you might have is you might have a loss, but you just don't want to click sell. Like you see that you're negative $200, negative $1,000, and you know you have to click the sell button, but something's stopping you. You're like, I don't want to realize this loss. Maybe let's give it 2 minutes. Let's give it 5 minutes. Maybe it goes up. Now, the way you get better at that is simply by taking more losses. Because the more losses you take, the more you realize, like, that wasn't too bad. Like, I'm still alive. I mean, I didn't die or anything. That's fine. It's not the worst feeling in the world. And so I've gotten so good at that my losses now are tiny. They're like 4%, 5-6%, super tiny losses. And like I keep saying, that's the way that you're going to grow your account. If your losses are huge, it's going to wipe out weeks worth of progress. If your losses are super tiny, you can barely notice it. And then when you make the next win, it's going to be insane. You won't even notice that you took a loss. So to avoid this entirely, you have to make sure that you keep your losses as tiny as possible. So this was the stock that I traded. You can see pre-market, it has very strong volume, very strong price action. This is very, very good stuff. We can see it's kind of curling into the open, which can be very good. It can be bad sometimes because sometimes it just dumps, but sometimes it can be very good. You can see it's kind of curling into the open, right? It breaks the previous pre-market high, which was somewhere over here, and it breaks it by a couple of cents. And it opens into the open, and we can see some very strong price action, right? Dips a little bit, but the dips all get bought back up. Strong volume, dips again, dips get bought back up, surges past pre-market high, closes past pre-market high, very high volume. This is amazing stuff. We have this candle where we have a bit of a topping tail, a lot of volume, and it closes green. So in general, it's an okay candle. Yeah, there's a couple of things we can kind of nitpick, but in general, it's a pretty okay candle. Then we have these two candles over here, low selling volume on these, and then we have a bull flag over here. I take that bull flag when it forms over there, and then throughout the trade, I can tell that it's really going nowhere. It tries going up above, as you can see there, but then eventually it closes kind of weak. Next candle opens, and it immediately starts finding resistance. Doesn't even almost make a new high, continues finding resistance, and when it gets very close to that pre-market high level, that's when I decide to sell the stock. Now, learning these rules is pretty easy, but when you actually try and execute, doubt will start to creep in. That's why I've opened up a few spots on my calendar this week for my mentorship. If you want me to build out a custom game plan specifically for you, you want to learn the strategy that I trade every day one-on-one, and you want to have every trade that you take reviewed by me, then go ahead and book a strategy session. It's the first link in the description. We'll talk about your bottlenecks. We'll try and fix all the problems that you have trading. I'll see you in the call. So now let's talk about the pros and cons of the trade that I took. Let's begin with the pros. The first pro that I want to talk about is that I found support at pre-market high. So you can see that I've marked that pre-market high with this blue line over here. Like I mentioned when I was on the chart, it beat the pre-market high by a little bit on this candle over here before the pre-market high was a little bit lower, which is good to see. It tells you it's consistently trying to make new highs. And we can see over here, before I took the trade, the candle before I took the trade, it actually found support on pre-market high. It had a little dips got bought back up, and then it started reversing upwards. This is exactly what we want to see. But unfortunately, it didn't work out. But that is the first pro. Another pro was that the red candles before it did have very low volume. So if you compare the volume of this big green candle versus these two smaller candles, you can see it's a pretty stark difference, right? Not many people are selling this, which is good for us, right? Because in an ideal bull flag, I don't want to see like a massive sell-off. I just want a tiny little pullback and the next leg up. And ideally, we want this pullback to be on very, very small volume, which is exactly what we saw over here. So that was another pro of this setup. And the last pro of the setup was we had very strong momentum. Listen, when a stock goes up this fast when market opens, that's a pretty good sign. That shows you people are super interested. They've been watching the stock, and as soon as it starts to make new highs, people are just buying up shares. So those were the three pros of the trade. Overall, it looked like a pretty good setup. But now let's talk about the cons. The main con of this trade was that it had a bit of a top wick. Now, I've put the word weak in brackets over here because I don't really consider this a very strong top wick. A strong top wick to me will kind of look something like this. Let's say the candle opens over here, right? It has a massive range, and then it closes down over here, and it leaves a massive topping tail like this and a little bit of a bottom wick. This to me is a very, very weak candle. This is a massive top wick. I wouldn't even think about trading this. Even if the next candle was green, I wouldn't trade it. So say the next candle opened over here and started climbing upwards. I wouldn't take this setup because of this massive topping tail. I just wouldn't, right? But this one in particular, it was kind of in the medium range where it's not super weak, but it's not super strong either. This one was kind of in the middle where it opened over here, it closed somewhere over here, and it had kind of equal amounts of wicks. Equal amounts on top and equal amounts at the bottom. That to me is generally fine. And when you add the bonus that the bottom wick was actually finding support on that pre-market high level, that's another bonus. So in my eyes, this was, yes, it was a top wick, but it was a very weak top wick. It didn't convince me enough to sit there and say, you know what, I'm not going to take this trade. It was a relatively weak top wick. Again, like I said, if it was something like this, I would just take my eyes off of it, completely stop trading. But something like this is, you let it pass. You let it pass. So that was the first con. And the next con, well, there's not another con. That's pretty much all I saw from this trade today.